Company employing hundreds of people in New Orleans is making multi-million-dollar investments to their facilities, but it's those projects that are causing concern for some in the community.
Yeah, tonight we investigate those concerns and why they say the company could owe the city millions. Sean Englam helped create Morris Jeff Community School.
I like to think of my daughter as being the first student at Morris Jeff.
He calls it the most diverse public school in the city.
More than 30% black, more than 30% white, about 30% Latino.
A school filled with students of different races and different educational needs.
There are children with autism. There are children who achieve academically at a very high level.
But one thing Englam says this and every school needs is more money.
And the first grade teachers shared one aide, not because they're superhumans, but because the school can't afford for those teachers with that variety of students in the classroom. The school cannot afford for all of them to have an aide.
And Englam thinks the school system and the city of New Orleans are due more money, but he says a large New Orleans business won't pay up.
We're not really asking for much. We're asking for Folgers to follow the law.
The law requires businesses like Folgers to pay taxes on personal property, machinery, equipment, and merchandise. Starting in 2017, state records show Folgers made several investments in new property.
They file these advanced notices, which gives the government advance notice that they're going to be spending this money. It's a sort of a corporate confession that we're about ready to add to the value of our property.
Records show Folgers started the improvement projects with the company labeled Plant Additions in 2017 and completed them in 2018. But since then, Folgers hasn't paid a dime of property taxes on the additions.
This is about basically the corporate double standard that we have, that everyone, all taxpayers have to pay their taxes and report their property, except for Folgers, apparently.
Joe Waltzer is an attorney and volunteers for the watchdog group Together New Orleans. They estimate Folgers owes the city millions.
It's $5 million plus, we believe.
Here's what happens when companies like Folgers make these improvements. They apply to the State Commerce and Industry Board to try and get those improvements exempt from additional taxes. For the improvements that started in 2017, Folgers filed an advance notification with the state. And 3 months after the work was completed in July of 2018, they submitted an application to receive the exemption. Here's where things take a unique turn. 2 weeks later, the State Economic Development Department says it asked Folgers additional information about the request, a clarification on new job creations, and for Folgers to reformat a breakdown of purchases to remove extraneous information. The state sent that request to Folgers on November 15, 2018. Folgers took 15 months to respond, replying on February 26th of this year. So by the delayed response, Folgers prolonged a vote on their tax exemption that might have allowed the company to not pay additional taxes. When the State Economic Development Department received the additional information, the state processed the application as board ready for board vote on the exemption. But again, Folgers delayed any action, the state telling us the applications were delayed from board consideration at the company's request, at Folgers' request. We asked the state why Folgers requested the delay. The state responded the company is not required to provide a reason for its request to defer. 2 years since Folgers completed these improvements, the company hasn't paid any additional taxes and hasn't received an exemption.
Folgers Coffee Company has been a decent, fiscal, taxpayer in our parish.
New Orleans tax assessor Errol Williams says he's waiting on a resolution from the state's Commerce and Industry Board.
Mine is not to gauge when Commerce and Industry approves or disapproves the contract. My key comes off of when they send me the affidavit of final cost. Okay, and at that point in time, I place it on tax rolls. If it's 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years later, and my requirement is to place it on the tax rolls from the date that Commerce and Industry says that it's taxable, or from the date in which they say it's not taxable.
If Folgers has actually done this work and they're just taking their time to go to Commerce and Industry, could they owe back taxes?
If Commerce and Industry says no, that your exemption is not approved, then they're going to owe taxes for all the way from 2018, from whenever they started this project.
But New Orleans City Council Vice President Helena Moreno says it's time for the coffee company to pay up.
To see that, someone's trying to go in for a tax exemption, a break, because they didn't file their taxes, from several years ago, and now they want the exemption. I just think that's really ridiculous. And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of offended by it as well.
Moreno says when the Commerce and Industry Board finally decides, she hopes board members vote no.
If they're to get this exemption, I think that's just a complete slap in the face to good government. Complete. And it should be something that the everyday taxpayer of the city is completely appalled about.
But Together New Orleans wants the assessor and city to act now and force Folgers to pay.
If you're a resident of New Orleans and you miss 1 year of paying your property tax, the city can sell your property. So we're asking them to let's treat everybody equally here. Let's invite everybody to do their fair share.
Because Englam says right now, as the city collects less sales tax revenue, every dollar counts more than ever.
I'm asking Folgers to step up and do their part for my children, for our public schools, for our city. This is not something extra we're asking for. It's not charity. It's being a good citizen and a good member of the city that you're a part of.
Folgers' parent company, the J.M. Smuckers company, declined our request for an interview but sent a statement saying, in part, we have consistently acted within the outlined legal processes of the ITEP program, both in terms of our response times and requests for hearing deferrals. We have taken a thorough approach to ensure we are providing those evaluating our requests complete and accurate details. They go on to say, we believe this is important and in the best interest of all involved, including the local community. It is also important to note that even with the exemptions we've received, we are still one of the area's largest taxpayers and have no outstanding tax debt or previous filings under formal review. You can read their full statement in this story on fox8live.com and in the Fox 8 News app.